Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon, dearest Venerable Teacher and to the Sangha. Today we will continue our discussion on the Four Noble Truths. Today we have reached the last, fourth Noble Truth, which is the path to escape our suffering that we've been discussing the first 3. So as we've been discussing about the Noble Truths that we went down the line of, just a quick summary, the Noble Truths are that in life there's suffering, the cause of suffering, which is desire, as we discussed, with attachment to desire. The third is that there is an end to that suffering of our attachment to desire. And now we're discussing the fourth truth, which is the path to end the suffering of our desires. So as the Buddha taught his first sermon, his first 5 disciples, he taught the sutra on the Dhammacakkappavattari Sutra, which is the discourse on the turning of the wheel. So he discussed the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And in Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path is the foundation of our practice of Buddhism. It is the core teaching that all other teachings stem from. So this should showcase how important it is to truly learn and practice and put in the effort to attaining full realizations of the Noble Truth, of the Four Truths and the Eightfold Path. Because just by deeply understanding these practices and these teachings, we can, like many of Buddha's disciples, we too can attain enlightenment, or at least a stage or level of realization of enlightenment toward our path. So as we go down the line, as we try to learn and discover the true meaning of each truth and the Eightfold Path, it'll help us actually hopefully put these practices into effect, into our daily life. So the Eightfold Path, which we will discuss individually in future services, that they are the Eightfold Path of right view, right effort, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So we'll discuss 1 or 2 for each service, depending on how long I talk for. But the Eightfold Path, these, like everything else in Buddhism, there's always these lists, right? So everything's a list in Buddhism. The 3 jewels, the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 12 links of independent origination, the 5 precepts, the 6 perfections. They're all these lists. But the good thing about these lists is that they are not something that we need to learn or practice in that order, in the order of the list, right? So even though right view is the first and right speech is the second, and so on and so forth, we don't have to learn them or practice them in that order, right? So the good thing about that is, because the Eightfold Path is this array of things that we can do and control in our life according to our thought, speech, and action, they need to be worked interdependently together, right? They need to all work together in order to find or to create the final effort of our path. So as we go down the list of the Noble Truths in future classes, we'll see how they all really connect together. They all have to interdependently work together. We have to apply all those different paths into our life simultaneously, right? So every thought we have, every speech we create, every action that we do, they all have to have the Eightfold Path together, right? They all work together. And so as we learn what this means, as we learn what each of these paths mean, and as we learn how we can apply them into our life to help us recognize and realize what the Eightfold Path is, then it's easier for us to start applying it into everyday life, right? It's easier for us to, as we have thoughts arise, whether they're positive or negative or neutral, as we begin to create speech, as we begin to do any action, we can hopefully apply and be aware enough, mentally mindful enough to say, I'm about to say something wrong, or I'm about to do something wrong, right? You can stop yourself from creating any ignoble efforts, right? Bad efforts. And many times the Buddha has been compared to a physician, right? So the Eightfold Path is this prescription to our suffering, which is the cause of our illness, right? So we have like the medicine Buddha, for instance, right? And in the Lotus Sutra, there are a couple of chapters where the parable of the physician is applied to the Buddha. So just like a physician, when if we're sick and we go to see our doctor, or are we sick, we have this illness, maybe we have a sore throat, we have headaches that won't go, we have a stomach ache, right? We know that there's something wrong, right? So that's the first step in our practice. The second step is to go see a doctor, right? You tell the doctor what your problems are, what the symptoms are, what your illnesses are. And from there, the doctor can do their doctor thing and figure out what's wrong with you and prescribe a prescription for you, right? And that prescription is this path. Now, just because you have a prescription, the next step is actually taking the prescription, right? Because you can go and get a prescription, you can and say, okay, I have medicine, but then you actually have to pick up the medicine, you actually have to take the medicine, and you have to continually use the medicine, right? Otherwise, the prescription is not going to work for you. So just because we learn and we study the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, that's just the very preliminary step. The next step is you actually applying it and utilizing it in your life. Otherwise, if you just read it and say, yes, I know what the Eightfold Path is, but you don't actually practice it, then you're not benefiting from this prescription, right? You just have knowledge. You're just carrying knowledge in your head. You have a heavy head now. You don't have any wisdom because you're not applying it to your life. And so in order to create wisdom, in order to apply it, you actually have to start to practicing it in everyday life, right? It's not just when you come to the temple, not just when you go to a meditation class or a meditation center, or in your home you have periods of daily worship and prayer. You have to apply that every time, every day, 24/7. And of course, it's very difficult to say I can be mindful 24/7 because our daily life is very chaotic, right? We have scheduled, we have work to do, we have places to go, we have to take care of our family, we have to see our friends, etc., etc. So we have all this stuff that takes our time, right? And we say I can't be mindful the whole time. But that's not really the point. The point is, as you do things, just the recognition, the awareness that to be mindful is what's important, right? So even if just by walking back to your car from the temple, be mindful of you walking to your car from the temple. Be mindful of the steps you take. Be mindful of how your feet feel as you touch the ground. Be aware of the weather, how the sun feels as it touches your skin, right? Just being aware of the activity. You don't have to say, oh, I'm taking a right step, I'm taking a left step, I'm looking up, I'm looking down, I'm moving my head. You don't have to be that kind of mindful, but just be mindful of the activity of what you're doing. It creates a habit in your mind, right? That way, for anything else that you do in life, you can be aware of it. So I always say, because our life is so busy and chaotic, everything is automatic in our life, right? We wake up, we get ready for work, we eat breakfast, we go to work, we come back home, we eat, we hang out for a little bit, we go to sleep, and we wake up and repeat, right? So by the end of the day, you can be like, how did I even get home? Did I even go to work today? I don't remember going to work. What did I eat for lunch, right? Because everything is so automatic, it's easy to forget the things that you've done. So as you go through these things, as you wake up, be mindful that you're waking up. I'm waking up. I have a new day in front of me. Be mindful of stepping out of bed. Be mindful of brushing your teeth, of eating. Be mindful of how the food feels, tastes like, right? Is it bitter? Is it sweet? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Whatever it may be. Just being mindful of the things you do, that way you can enjoy them more. Otherwise, if you're just eating so fast, and drinking, you don't taste anything, right? You're filling your body up, but you don't know what you're filling your body up with. So it's the same thing when we practice Buddhism or learn any of the teachings. We have to apply them, ingest them in our mind, but also utilize them in life. Otherwise, you're just collecting data and you're not doing anything about it. Where's your suffering? Your suffering is still there. It's not going to go anywhere if you don't apply the practice, right? And the good thing about the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Paths is as we go through them, right, a lot of people, we all have difficult situations and periods of our life, right? And so as we learn the Noble Truths, as we learn the Eightfold Path and be able to recognize how we can apply them in our life, then we can see that if we're going through difficult periods in our life, we can recognize that this is a difficult period. We can recognize that this is difficult for me, or it's difficult to say or do certain things, and then from there, because you have learned and practiced the Four Noble Truths, you can recognize and be aware, okay, I am suffering. Where is this suffering coming from, right? Because sometimes, a lot of times, we just blame other people or blame things. We blame our job that we're so tired. We blame our neighbor for being up all night because their music is too loud, or whatever it may be. We're always blaming. But really, a lot of the times, the blame is really just on ourselves. Because if we're suffering with something, we either hold on to it, right? And we just kind of shove it to the back of our mind, and then we're holding resentment, right? Where we are resenting a certain place or a certain person without really acknowledging that is suffering, right? So as we go through difficult situations, we can hopefully be mindful of, okay, I am suffering right now. Why am I suffering? Where is this suffering coming from? And if you're able to ask yourself those questions and really dig deep into your mind and pinpoint that cause of the suffering, now you have something concrete that you can touch and know what to do with, right? Just like going to the doctors, right? You give them all these symptoms, and these symptoms can mean many different things. It could just be a simple cold, or it could be cancer, or it can be life-threatening, you don't know, right? Because all these different results have the same symptoms, but it's their job to pinpoint exactly what is wrong with you, right? Whether they have to take tests from you, they have to take blood, they have to take different samples from you, whatever it is, they have to do the work in order to figure out what the main cause of your suffering is. So we have to do the same thing as well, right? We have to really dig deep. We have to filter through all the defilements in our mind to figure out what that core source of our suffering is. And now we have something. Now we know what it is, and we can tackle it, and we can work toward removing it from our life, right? I always say sometimes it's a person. If it's a person that's causing you suffering, causing you discomfort all the time, every time, maybe you have to admit to yourself, okay, this is the person that's causing me suffering. Maybe I have to stop being friends with them. Maybe I have to distance myself from them, right? Or maybe you have to talk to people more because you need to socialize more or interact with people more. Whatever it is, right? It could be different things, but I can't tell you what it is. So it's going to be up to your job to sit down and really start to investigate your own mind, investigate yourself to figure out what that core is, where that core of the suffering is coming from. And as we do that, it's going to be, sometimes it'll be difficult, right? Because we have to really dig through and peel the layers of suffering to figure out what's wrong. Or sometimes it's something really simple. But either way, we have a transformation happening in our mind, right? And this transformation is often gradual, but eventually we'll be able to see clearly what it is. And as we do that more and more often, it'll be easier and easier for us down the path for us to pinpoint those sufferings, to be able to say, this is what's happening much more quickly, right? Because now we don't know what to do. We don't know how to find our suffering. We don't know how to apply the path to our life. So it's going to take a little bit more time. But as we practice, as we study, as we apply the teachings more often in our life, it'll be easier for us to stop ourselves from having those negative thoughts, stopping ourselves from saying negative things, stopping ourselves from doing negative actions, right? Because everything starts as a thought first, right? If you're thinking something bad, or you're thinking of cussing someone out, then you're thinking about it, and if you can't stop at the thought process, then now you're saying it out loud, right? So now you're physically saying bad things or negative things to someone. And if you can't stop yourself from there, then it may escalate to action. So you may physically attack them or physically do something negative, right? So you have many opportunities in our life, in this process, to stop yourself from doing negative actions, right? So the more we're able to practice being mindful and being aware of how our thinking and mind works, the easier it is for us to stop ourselves from doing negative things, right? And we're able to stop, when we're able to stop ourselves from doing negative things, then when we're in difficult situations, our reactions will be automatic, right? Because typically what happens if we're in an altercation, right? If someone's arguing with us, our automatic habit is to argue back, right? They're cussing us out, we're going to cuss them out. They're going to hit us, we're going to hit them back, right? We have a retaliation habit. But if we're able to practice deeply and correctly, then if someone's insulting us or someone's trying to attack us, we can recognize that our retaliation in the same way is not going to fix the problem, right? You can't fix violence with more violence. You can't fix hatred with more hate. You can only apply compassion and kindness and love in order to stop and subdue the situation, right? And so that's one great benefit of our practice, is to be able to control those certain situations, right? To control ourselves from not having to insult people back, to not having to say negative things back, to not have to attack them back, right? And as we do that, then we become happier people, we become more calm. We're able to calm our mind. Because typically we talk to ourselves all the time, right? We're in our car, if someone's passing us by too fast, or someone cuts us off, we're always thinking negative things. Why did you cut me off? How dare you cut me off? Right? We're already insulting them just because they're driving too fast or they cut us off. And now we're trying to drive faster than them and cut them off too. But like I always say, if we do that, what's the benefit there? Because you allowed your anger to take over, now you're cutting them off, and you can potentially create an accident, right? You can hit them, you can hit other people, you can hurt yourself, you can hurt other people, you can potentially kill someone within this accident. So what's the benefit there? What benefit did you get from this accident? Why? Because you allowed your anger to take over. But as you practice and as you try to master your mindfulness skills, then if that happens in the future, you can say, okay, they cut me off, no big deal. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe the wife in the car is giving birth, right? Maybe someone's bleeding out to death, they're rushing to the hospital. You don't know, right? But because we allowed our anger to take over, we are thinking that we're better than they are, so how dare they cut me off, right? You're already thinking that your time is more valuable, that your life is more valuable. So we insult them back, we cuss them out back, we cut them off again. For what reason, right? All because you allowed anger to arise. But as we practice and as we are able to master that thinking and master how we can watch our thinking, then we can stop all that from happening. Just let it go. Accept what happened, right? Because that's enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment is simply the freedom of not suffering from the three poisons of ignorance, greed, and anger, right? It is a mindset of being free of these defilements and accepting things as they are without attaching to them or without any expectations, right? So freedom of mind, freedom of just letting things be, already creates a happy person, already creates happiness in you, right? Because if you hang on to that, if someone insults you in the morning, right? So assuming you are walking out of your house and you're going to work and your neighbor insults you or something else happens, not causes you mental distress, right? So now you're in a bad mood because you're hanging on to that insult all the way. You're driving to work and you're thinking about the insult. How did they say that? I should have said something back. I should have done something. Blah blah blah, right? And now you go to work and you're still in a bad mood, and your coworkers are trying to, say good morning. Hey, how are you? How's your day going? And you're already annoyed, so you're responding with anger and with annoyance, and now you've angered them, and now you've annoyed them, and then they can cause the same reaction to everybody else. So one person, you, the only person being annoyed and angry, now you have a whole office of annoyed and angry people too, because you were hanging on to something negative to happen to you. But if you've if you've accepted it when it happened, and just said, okay, it happened, nothing happened to me, right? If somebody insults you, what does that actually do to you? Nothing, right? But because we have this ego, we have this self saying, oh, how dare they insult me? I'm better than this, I'm better than them, right? Our ego takes over, and so we are trying to defend ourselves, essentially. And by trying to defend yourself, you're just hanging on to that insult the entire day. And if you don't accept it and let it go, then you can it'll be stuck in your mind for a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, years even, right? Because you're harboring that anger within you, and you're not letting it go. And so as we let that go, right, as we practice letting go and practice acceptance of things as they are, then we don't have to worry about hanging on to those defilements, those angry thoughts. We don't have to worry about hanging on to the insults or any of that. And so our mind becomes clearer, our mind becomes happier, we become happier, right? And that's really what anybody wants in life, is to be happy. But because we don't know what to do with these insults, we don't know what to do with angry situations or with altercations or anything like that, we don't know what to do with it, then we just hang on to it, and we try to defend ourselves, and we just keep piling up all the negative things. If you just let it go, because nothing happened to you, someone insulted you, that's fine. Someone called you fat and ugly, who cares? Are you actually fat and ugly? No. But if you believe the words, then you're going to hang on to it for the rest of the day, for the rest of your life, for years, and whatever, right? You create you're self-sabotaging yourself. You're creating self-trauma because you're believing the negativity and not just letting it go. So as we practice and as we go through these Eightfold Path and we start to learn them in detail and master them, then we can see, hopefully, how things in our life really can be simplified, right? Because sometimes we see a situation, or we create a situation, and we just add to it. We add all these thoughts and what ifs and hows and buts and ifs and everything, right? But if we can just see things as they are, allowing it just to be, without creating stories for them, without creating false perceptions, then we can accept it and say, this is how it is. And there's no changing it, right? Something already happened. It's in the past. You can't change the past. And the future hasn't happened yet, so don't be anxious about the future. Just worry about what's going on now, right? And as we go through the 8 paths, then we can start to learn and know exactly how to apply those specific practices in our life, and how we can apply the teaching of right view, how we can apply the teaching of right speech, right action, right mindfulness, right effort, right intention, right livelihood, and mindfulness and concentration. Once we apply those in our life, and within our practice, and through our practice, then you are one step closer to becoming a Buddha, right? And that's, for most of us, that's our goal, is to become a Buddha, or some sort of enlightened being. But in order to get to that point, you have to apply and master these paths and truths. So I will stop there for today, otherwise I'm going to go into much more detail that none of us needs to hear. But for future classes, we'll just be going hopefully one or two of the paths at a time. And hopefully through those teachings and through your own efforts and application, you can see just how much suffering we can eliminate from our life, right? And then we can become happier people and say, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Okay. Any questions, concerns? Okay. Then we will go ahead and transfer the mirror and then go into chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment.
Suffer.